Imagine, if you will, the world at the dawn of the 20th century, a world teetering on the brink of a cataclysmic war. As the new century unfurled, a tempest of political tensions and alliances swirled across Europe, threatening to shatter the uneasy peace. The fuse was lit with the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria, a spark that ignited the powder keg of conflict. And so, the stage was set for a war, unlike any the world had seen before. In 1914, the world plunged into chaos. The Great War had begun. Like a tempest, it swept across nations, leaving no corner untouched. The early battles were fierce, as both sides grappled for control. The Marne, the Aisne, the Yser, names now synonymous with the opening salvos of a global conflict. As the initial wave of confrontation subsided, a new form of warfare emerged. Lines of trenches stretched across the Western Front, from the Swiss border to the North Sea. This was no longer a war of movement, but a brutal, grinding stalemate. Soldiers huddled in these man-made chasms, their lives dictated by the dread of sniper's bullet and the whistle of an incoming shell. The land between opposing trenches, aptly named no man's land, bore witness to countless charges and countercharges. In the mud and the blood, the war raged on, seemingly without end. But behind the lines of battle, a different kind of war was waged. This was a war that tested the will of every soldier and civilian caught in the storm of conflict. The trenches, those grim furrows of despair, were a testament to the harsh realities of war. Soldiers were subjected to the relentless onslaught of nature and man, their spirits battered by the ceaseless rain of shells and the gnawing hunger of the cold. Beyond the trenches, civilians too bore the brunt of war. In towns and cities, the spectre of hunger and disease loomed large, casting a long shadow over the home front. The indiscriminate horror of chemical weapons added a new layer of dread to the war, a silent and unseen enemy that could strike without warning. The war was not just a battle of nations, but a battle of humanity itself. The human cost of World War I was a grim reminder of the true price of conflict. In 1918, after 4 long years, the guns finally fell silent. The final battles were as fierce as they were desperate, a struggle for survival etched in mud and blood. From the ravaged landscapes of the Western Front to the turbulent waters of the North Sea, warriors fought, not for glory, but for a chance to see another dawn. Then, on the 11th day of the 11th month, at the 11th hour, an armistice was signed. The engines of war ground to a halt, and a hush fell over the world. The weary soldiers, no longer bound by the chains of conflict, emerged from their trenches, their faces etched with relief and sorrow. In the aftermath, negotiations and treaties reshaped the map of Europe. Empires crumbled, new nations were born, and the world order shifted, forever changed by the cataclysm of war. The war was over, but its echoes would reverberate through history. World War I left an indelible mark on the world. Its legacy continues to shape our world today. The aftermath was a world forever changed, a landscape scarred by the horrors of the first mechanized warfare. The map of Europe was redrawn, empires crumbled, and new nations were born from the ashes. The conflict spurred a surge of nationalism, as nations sought to protect their interests and establish their place in a rapidly changing world. This surge, however, would later fuel the fires of another devastating conflict. The war also ushered in significant changes in warfare. The introduction of tanks, airplanes, and chemical weapons transformed battlefields into landscapes of mechanized death. This shift in warfare tactics led to an increased emphasis on technological advancement and military innovation. Perhaps the most haunting legacy of World War I was the seeds it sowed for World War II. The Treaty of Versailles, intended to ensure peace, instead left a bitter taste of resentment and desire for revenge in the hearts of the defeated. This resentment, combined with economic instability, paved the way for the rise of fascism and the onset of the Second Global Conflict. And so we remember World War I, not as a distant chapter of history, but as a haunting echo that still resonates today. It's a stark reminder of the human cost of conflict and the lasting impact of decisions made in the throes of war.